Hey, g'day and welcome back to Atlas. It's been quite a while now, probably more than a month. It's been quite a long time since Atlas have actually released an update to the game. But here we are finally after such a long time, and I believe even in my last little update video I actually was saying how wonderful it was that they were producing such a lot of updates in a short period of time, just for them to turn around and do a big long gap like they have for the current one. And as you can see out there, they basically got a new ship type, the turtle ship, and they made an update to the spider. When I went to run the command for getting the spider, the next one down from spider was squid, and I accidentally spawned in a giant squid, as we can see here on the land. But there's a number of changes that we're basically going to go through and have a look at. But we might as well start straight off the bat on the top of the event, which is actually a rate-up event. And this is going to go through to the 6th of September, and it's quite a significant one. They've got times 4 gold, times 4 taming, times 5 harvesting, and times 5 XP. So for those people who play on servers, obviously this is going to be a wonderful opportunity to progress. And just get a heap of resources and just go absolutely bananas. I had been playing on a PvE server for a little while, but I have basically gone on to other things in the meantime, as a number of games came out that I was very, very interested in playing, and I've been doing that instead. But we have a patch to cover, so that's what we're doing. Anyway, yes, lots and lots of stuff for this rate-up event. I just can only imagine what it's like with times 5 harvesting. I actually think they should implement what Ark did and just make the default times 2 to begin with it as well. Anyway, that's the rate-up event. First thing that we're actually going to jump into after that is the spider itself. Now, the spider was already released a little while ago, but what they've done is they've introduced the ability to do climbing. And I noticed this before, like the synchronization of the crawl doesn't match the ground, so it seems a little bit of off a little bit, especially when you're running. But it's actually seamless. You don't have to jump, you don't have to do anything silly, you just walk at a wall and it treats it as if it's the ground. However, when you're climbing, it actually uses stamina, and if you were to run out of stamina, it will actually fall. It'll let go and actually fall to the ground. But it's actually very seamless to use, which I was actually very happy to see. It's not like you have to hit some special button, or like with the climbing hooks and things, you actually get a little icon that says that you can actually join. You just walk at the wall and it climbs. Quite good. And jumping just basically lets go and jumps. So let's try that. Oh, so yeah, jump and grab too. Very, very nice. It literally treats it as if it's ground. So let's get onto a little bit of an edge and jump off. Right, you can pretty much jump off an edge too. So the spider climb is actually being implemented really, really... Gosh, the sitting position's a little bit weird. But yeah, the climbing seems to have been implemented in a really seamless fashion. It's really quite nice. Ooh. Gets a little bit weird with the graphics, with a little bit of a lag and a delay on some of the things that you might actually be seeing there. But yes, very happy with that. The climbing is seamless. Very, very nice. Next up, we basically have the turtle ship itself. It's got a lovely dragon figurehead, which is actually quite pertinent for the fact that it is meant to have a smoke screen. That ability where you can basically pump out a bunch of smoke. That thing underneath the dragon head is actually a door. Okay, with the turtle ship, you can probably see in the background I've actually got several turtle ships already, because I was mucking around and there's a few problems which I'm going to go over along the way. I had a lot of trouble spawning it in the first place. My inventory is still pretty heavy at the moment. What you're going to need is the very specific keratin resource, or keratin chitin resource. You can actually see that they actually made a little modification to the icon there. But 22,000 gold and 150 chitin will actually get you the turtle ship. So we'll chuck that on. That's right. You can't put the resources that it won't take in there. So I'm currently overweight with all the new resources. My first problem was actually trying to find the right resource. I thought that the fact that it actually needed chitin, that it would just take any keratin resource, but it won't. You have to have specifically the chitin, which you get from spiders and ants. And obviously, yeah, 22,000 gold is what it is. And we then get the new ship. that can actually be seen here. Let's have a look if we can get inside this sucker. There we go. It's got 2 floors of cannons. Each of these basically I would assume to be a module where you could replace them out for a double, obviously at the cost of more module points. There's some rear cannons, and there's a second floor of more of the same. Get down, and yeah, more of the same. Steering wheel's down there as well. Alright, some front cannons there. On the front we have a figurehead. Inside the figurehead you can place a coal resource, and with the coal resource you can use the ship's smoke screen ability, and it then comes with pretty much just straight up weight sails, 3 of them. With the, let's just get up again. So with the armor itself, you can actually see here that the railing has a health, and then on top of that you actually have armor as a health there written in the green text. And from what I understand, you need to actually break through the armor before you can actually get to the sails, which means that people can't take your sails out and disable the vehicle, which is somewhat handy, despite the fact that this is actually a very, very slow ship. So let's get down and actually we need to launch this. Release the ship. Alright, let's get down. I'm not going to bother populating this with people. We'll just go set ignore wind. There we go. And off we go. Now, it'd probably be better to, well, obviously it's got weight sails on it, but whether or not the other sails would actually make this a bit better. The turning and the handling of this one's actually pretty bad from what I've actually been using. It doesn't really go particularly fast, and it doesn't turn particularly fast. But that's to be expected because it's obviously designed as something that's meant to be slow and ponderous. And with the amount of firepower that you potentially can get with it, I'm actually wondering if you could swap out the modules to have the cannons all on one side, and that would actually make it very interesting. But I'm not going to go too much into the configuration of the ship, so I'm just trying to go through the patch notes. But if you hold Shift Z, the smoke screen will pour out of the front. You can actually see it starting to pour out of the dragon head at the front there, and get a bit of a grey haze, which is meant to hide. Well, yeah, you can't really see anything behind the armoured ship. So you basically, you could have this in the lead, although it's not really going to do much for you if you want faster ships. So it's going to be interesting to see how people can actually use the utility of this thing, given that it's slow and the smokescreen ability requires everybody else to be behind it. Or maybe you could use it during combat to basically hide the position. But the thing is, it blocks your view as well. So, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how people use it over time and whether people give it, find a good use for it. I won't particularly find a good use for it, other than if I can actually stack all the cannons on one side, and we'll see what the firepower is like. Alright, and lastly, before we move on, this turtle ship here, this is actually one that I spawned in when I was having some troubles. I used SSF Turtle, thinking that that would be the obvious thing to do to spawn one in, but this is actually an older version of the development of the ship apparently. Whereas if you use the SSF Armoured ship, you actually get the correct one. This one, the smoke doesn't actually work, and it's a single story, whereas the other one, obviously double story, and the smoke does work. We're back at base and we're having a look at the next couple of items, and they're purely cosmetic. We've got basically a wall planter box. It says planter box, it's not a planter box. I was actually hoping this would be something where we can actually grow our own plants on the walls, conserve space instead of actually growing something on the ground. You can grow it on the wall, but yeah, there's no options at all. It's purely something that's hanging on the wall. And then we have the hanging version of the planter boxes, and again, it's just purely cosmetic, and you actually place it on a wall. I had actually hoped that you could actually, that's the wrong one, you could actually place it on a ceiling, but you don't get that option. Plant. Now let's grab one of them now, and I'll just show you how that works. But yeah, you can basically choose which wall you want the hanger to actually go in at what height, which is all well and good. So you can make it clip into the ground and everything, but yeah, I can't make that actually join onto the ceiling. It's not an option, so you can't just have it hang from the ceiling. It has to hang from a wall. It's really nice to see some of the cosmetic items, I guess, come into the game, given that they said that it was a PvP game and we wouldn't be getting anything else. But there it is. We have a cosmetic item. Maybe we'll get more cosmetic items over time, but I wanted it to be where we could actually put our own plants in. And we're on to, I guess, the last part before the bug fixes. And I had hoped also to be able to show this one off, but apparently I can't because I'm basically trying to showcase this on single player. One of these days I'll get my own little private server set up and we can I can do these testing and showing off outside of using single player and the official servers, which would be nice, but you know, I'm not quite there yet. Basically they took the buff towers. So the towers that you can actually build on the, what are they called? If we look at the map, we're on one right now. Yeah, zoom in. Okay, so we're on one of these, basically the trade claim towers that you actually get. And I destroyed everything on here, trying to see if I could actually take control of it in single player, but you can't. But you have the option to basically build the Army of the Damned Pylon, the Atlantean Spire, and the Industrial Generator when you own this waypoint, and it's something that in the PvP you can basically fight over. And each of these different towers actually provides you with a different buff. And this was actually covered on in a different update. But now with these different things, they've actually changed it so that it uses different types of things. So the Industrial Generator, yes, I'm hovering over it right now. Generic coal will grant ship damage reduction as normal. However, if you use sulfur and peat, it will grant a buff that increases your reload speed. Graphite and anthracite will grant a buff that increases the speed at which you can repair your ships. And niter and lignite will grant a buff that allows the AI controlling the weapons on your boat to have greater range. So it's quite significant differences when you actually use different resources for the generator. For the Army of the Damned Pylon. This one, so generic hide and keratin is the resource that you're actually looking at. However, the generic one will offer you ship and weapon damage buff. If you use scale, rhino horn, chitin, and shell, it will grant a buff that will increase the impact of the damage of your ship. Impact damage, so basically you do more damage. Wool, leather, fur, and carapace will be a buff that increases the rate of experience that you actually gain on the ship. And then bone, residue, pelt, hide, and skin will grant a buff that reduces the cooldown of feats that impact ship combat. So something like reload, overdrive, repair fiend, and rally the troops. So yes, once again, some very specific buffs that you can actually gain. You have to choose which one that you're actually going to go for which resource you actually power your pylons with. Okay, Atlantean Spire is actually generated from crystals. And so generic crystal will grant a buff to your ship's speed. I think a lot of people in the short term are probably going to be going for that. Amethyst and Herkimer are going to be granting a buff which increases the turning force of your ship. I like the sound of that. I like the idea of being able to turn faster. Calcite and Quartz will give a buff that decreases the overall weight of the ship. Items and structures carried included. Ooh, that's an interesting one. And so, yeah, actually, that's a real beneficial one from a utility point of view. And I wonder if that would end up being something maybe like your PvE people might end up liking that one. Your Pearl and your Tellurite will give a buff that decreases the rate at which your boat will sink. Also very, very handy. As you can hear, there's basically quite a lot of unique combinations that you can actually pull out by using different types of spires, pylons, and generators. And depending on what resource that you and your crew decide that you actually want to power it with. Yeah, very, very interesting. I'll be curious to see how this affects how people actually see the sea forts and how much competition there will actually be over them. Yeah, very, very interesting to see. As the sun sets once again on the game in my little shitty hut that I've put together just for reading out the patch notes, we're on to the bug fixes, and apparently they've fixed multiple instances where the character progression was rolled back. There's instances where certain fertilized eggs were actually causing Xbox users to crash. Fixes where people were circumventing the company cooldowns. Bug fix where certain modules could not be painted. and a bug where cannonballs and mortar shots were not visible. Ooh, that's an interesting jump. It's a bit unrealistic. A bug where cannonball and mortar shots were not visibly exploding. I'm just going to keep jumping because it's just funny. Bug with the ballistic infantry. Some of the people that I've been playing with that were more interested in the PvE aspects of things and playing single player, the shipyards were sometimes disappearing on us, and apparently they fixed that on single player, which also included armored docks. They fixed the bug with the mortar ship sailing physics for a smooth visual image while sailing. Maybe they should work on the visual image of a spider jumping, because that's just crazy. On the miscellaneous side of things, they changed the buckle tower firing particles to be less garish. Not that I've really actually seen that. And there's been a redux performed on the mortar ship appearance. We could probably do that, except it's just gotten to night time. Let's go have a look. Fly. And we go. SSF mortar. Boom. There's a few more swirls on it, I think. I don't remember that swirl being on it. I guess it looks a little bit cleaner. It's a little bit dark. Let's gamma up. It's still got that boxy, castle-y shape to it. But yeah, I can kind of see how they've done a little bit of work on there. I know that they did actually do a bit of work. So if we actually spawn in the Noid base, which is Keratinoid, this used to have a very, very different icon. And Keratin now basically has this bone-like icon. And so if I do that same one with bone, so this would be the bone that you would actually get from a pig, and you can see that it now has that keratin bone icon instead of the brownish red shell icon that it used to have. And so they've done a little bit of work, and that was the other thing. There's multiple resource icons which were duplicate have been dealt with, but they've also done a little bit of tweaking on some of the imagery, and so that's one of the ones that they've actually done. Yeah. Anyway, that actually brings us to the end of the patch notes. Anyway, thanks for listening in. Make sure you leave me a comment down in the comments if you have some thoughts about the patch and the new turtle ship. And yeah, maybe I'll see you in Atlas sometime in the future. But right now, I have been taking a little bit of a break from the actual game itself. A number of games actually came out recently, like I got gifted Subnautica Zero. Subnautica Below Zero, which I've actually been playing. I'm trying to finish off the last of Genesis 2 on Ark so that I can actually move on from that as well. And there's a whole bunch of other games that seem to be popping up that are also quite enjoyable. I certainly won't be giving up on Atlas altogether, but there's just so much to play right now, it's not funny. Alright, thanks for listening in, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.